Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes involving adult relationships and personal conflict. There is no explicit content, but viewer discretion is advised. It was supposed to be a quick drive, just me and Tyler, my 24-year-old stepson, heading back from a family barbecue in the foothills. The others stayed behind for one more round of drinks around the fire pit, but I had work in the morning, and Tyler said he wanted to beat traffic. The moment the car door shut and we pulled onto the dark, winding road, I felt it. Something unspoken hanging in the air. He was quiet. Not in the usual, scrolly on his phone way. Quiet like he was carrying something heavy. And I didn't know it yet, but so was I. Let me back up a second. I married his father 3 years ago. Tyler was already grown, finishing college and living in his own world. We never really bonded, but we were polite, friendly even. He'd visit for holidays, call his dad now and then, and we'd trade the occasional text about football or whose turn it was to bring dessert. Surface stuff. I never expected more. Honestly, I didn't think he even liked me much. But that night, in the silence of the car, it felt like the air between us had changed. I caught him watching me more than once out of the corner of my eye. Not in a weird way. Just different. Like he had something to say and wasn't sure how. I kept my eyes on the road, but my grip on the wheel tightened. "You okay?" I asked finally, half expecting the usual shrug or a quick, "Yeah, I'm good." He didn't answer right away. Just stared out the window like he was somewhere else. "I've been thinking about a lot of stuff lately," he said after a long pause. "About Dad. About you. About everything." There was a weight to his voice I'd never heard before. Honest. Raw. I didn't push. Just nodded, hoping he'd keep talking. But then he laughed, a short, bitter kind of laugh, and said, "It's weird how fast things can change. One minute you think you know where you stand with people, and the next, he trailed off. We were coming up on a stretch of highway where the trees thinned out and the lights from the city glowed faint in the distance. I could have changed the subject, turned up the music, pretended I didn't feel the shift. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Tyler, if there's something you need to get off your chest, just say it. I can take it." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Like he was trying to decide if he could trust me with whatever he'd been holding back. Then he said something I never saw coming. Words that hit like a gut punch and made the road ahead blur for a second. What he said changed everything. Not just between us, but between me and his father. Between who I thought I was and who I might have been all along. And the thing is, I still don't know if I was ready to hear it. He didn't speak again for a while after that. Just sat there, jaw clenched, foot tapping the floor rhythmically. I could feel it, the quiet before something breaks. My heart pounded harder with each mile. "You remember that Christmas 2 years ago?" he said suddenly, eyes still fixed on the window. "The one where Dad forgot to buy a tree until the night before?" I nodded, not sure where this was going. "Yeah. You were the one who found that little one at the gas station." Tyler smiled faintly. "Right. You were the only one who said it looked perfect. It was a throwaway memory. At least I thought it was. But he remembered it differently. With meaning. I used to think you were just pretending," he continued. "Trying too hard to play the good wife." I hated that. I blinked. "Okay, but then I started to notice things. The way you stayed up with him when he got those migraines. How you'd make sure I always had food when I visited, even though I barely said a word to you. You didn't treat me like a guest. You just treated me like I belonged." His voice was tight now. I wasn't sure what to say. No one had ever accused me of being a saint, but I tried to be real. Not fake friendly. Not overbearing. Just there. "You were the first person who ever talked to me like I was more than some angry kid trying to get out of the house," he said. "And I hated you for it at first. Because it felt too good. I glanced at him again, this time longer than I should have while driving. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying. Not really. I don't hate you now, he said quietly. The road was empty. Just us and the steady hum of tires on asphalt. I'm not trying to mess things up, he added. I need to know if I'm crazy for feeling like something shifted. Like maybe I'm not the only one who noticed. There it was. Out in the open. I gripped the wheel harder, my knuckles turning white. Because he wasn't wrong. Something had shifted. Not tonight, months ago. Quiet moments that lasted too long. Glances I told myself I imagined. Conversations that felt different than they should have. But I shoved it all down, buried it under obligation, under loyalty, under every reason why nothing should ever come of it. But now the lid was off. You're not crazy, I said, voice barely above a whisper. But we can't pretend this is simple. He let out a breath. I know. I wanted to pull over. Or scream. Or rewind time. But instead, I just kept driving. Because the truth wasn't something we could escape just by speeding past it. Behind us, the mountains disappeared into darkness. Ahead, the city lights crept closer, flickering like warning signs we were too late to heed. I didn't know where this was going, but I knew it had already gone further than it should have. And just when I thought the conversation was over, he said something else. Something that made my stomach drop. I didn't ask him to repeat it. I didn't need to. The words were already etched in my mind. I think I feel something for you. And I don't know what to do with it. Neither did I. We drove in silence for a few miles, the only sound the low rumble of the road and the ticking of my turning signal as I exited toward the neighborhood gas station. I needed a break. A second to breathe. I pulled into a quiet corner of the lot, killed the engine, and stared out the windshield. I shouldn't have said it like that, Tyler said beside me, voice low. I couldn't carry it anymore. He wasn't trying to be dramatic. If anything, he looked like he regretted every word. You didn't say anything I haven't thought about, I admitted. But thoughts aren't the same as actions. He nodded, slowly. Still, it's wrong. It was. At least on paper. I was his stepmother. Married to his father. But biologically, we were strangers. And emotionally? That was the gray area no one warns you about. Lines get blurry when trust feels more real than blood. What about your dad? I asked, finally voicing the thing I'd been avoiding since this shift started months ago. Tyler leaned back against the seat, eyes fixed on the ceiling of the car. He doesn't see you. Not really. He stopped seeing you after the first year. I swallowed. Hard. It was something I had buried deep, afraid of what it would mean if I admitted it. The distance. The coldness that crept in and stayed. The feeling of being partnered with someone who treated connection like a chore. You still love him? Tyler asked. His voice wasn't pushy. Just honest. I hesitated. I did. I still do in the way you love someone who once felt like home. But now, it's more like I'm living with a memory of him. Not the man himself. It was the first time I'd said that out loud. We sat there for a while, the fluorescent lights of the gas station casting a sterile glow over us, making everything feel exposed. A couple of teenagers rolled by on bikes, laughing, oblivious to the storm unraveling inside this parked car. Then my phone buzzed. His name lit up the screen. Tom. My husband. Tyler's dad. I froze. Don't answer it, Tyler said quickly. Not yet. I stared at the phone, watched it stop ringing, then light up again. Missed call. New message. Everything okay? You're not home yet. Guilt twisted in my gut. Not because of anything we'd done, but because of what we hadn't and the fact that it already felt like betrayal. Tyler reached for the door. I need air. He stepped outside, leaning against the car, running his hands through his hair like he was trying to scrub the moment out of his head. I watched him from inside, torn between getting out and staying in. My pulse was racing, brain tangled in questions I didn't know how to answer. Then headlights flashed across the lot. A familiar SUV pulled in, slowing near us. And that's when my stomach dropped. It was Tom. Tom didn't see Tyler right away. He pulled up, windows down, a casual wave on his face like this was nothing more than a coincidence. "Hey," he called. "Car trouble." Tyler stepped away from the car, subtly positioning himself out of Tom's line of sight. His voice was tight. We stopped for a second. I slid my phone into my lap and forced a smile, but I could already feel the tremble in my hands. Tom climbed out of his SUV, eyeing the two of us. "You didn't text back." I got worried. I kept my voice steady. "We were just talking. Needed some air." He glanced at Tyler, then back at me. "Talking? About what?" It wasn't the question itself. It was the edge in his voice. Suspicion, not curiosity. And suddenly, everything we hadn't said for the last year came rushing to the surface. The silences, the deflection, the way he'd stopped asking how I was, but always wanted to know where I'd been. Tyler stayed quiet, watching us both, shoulders tense like he was ready for this to go bad fast. Tom moved closer. "Is something going on I should know about?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because yes, something was going on. Not an affair. Not a secret rendezvous. But an emotional current I couldn't deny anymore. And standing there under the white glow of the gas station lights, I realized that no version of the truth would come without fallout. Tyler broke the silence. "I told her something I probably shouldn't have." Tom turned. "What does that mean?" I stepped between them. "Tyler, stop." But he didn't. He looked right at his father and said, "I told her how I feel. About her. And I'm not taking it back." Time froze. Tom stared at him like he hadn't heard right. Then at me. And the shift in his face was instant. Shock. Hurt. Rage. "What the hell are you saying?" I stepped in again, voice shaking. Nothing happened. We didn't cross any lines. Didn't yet, Tom snapped. His tone was cutting now. "You let my son fall for you?" I shook my head. It wasn't like that. But Tom was unraveling. Jesus Christ. I thought I was losing you, but not like this. Not to him. Tyler's fists were clenched at his sides. "Don't talk to her like that." "Oh, now you're defending her?" "What? You think this makes you a man?" That hit hard. Too hard. And Tyler snapped. "I've been more of a man than you ever were to her." The words echoed, loud and final. I felt the shift the second they left his mouth. No one moved. No one spoke. Tom stared at him, then at me with a look I couldn't read. Not fully. Disbelief, maybe. Betrayal. The kind that cuts bone deep. Then he turned without another word, got back into his SUV, and slammed the door. He didn't drive off right away. Just sat there. And in that moment, with Tyler beside me and my husband sitting in a car he suddenly seemed like a stranger in, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Tom didn't drive off. He sat in his SUV, engine running, hands clenched on the wheel like he was wrestling the urge to explode or escape. Tyler stood stone still beside me, his chest rising and falling like he'd just run a mile. Then Tom stepped out again. But his voice wasn't raised. It was cold. "You really want to talk about betrayal," he said, his eyes locked on me now. "Fine. Let's talk." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. "You think this hurts me? You think this is some big shock?" He looked between us with a hollow laugh. "You have no idea how far this mess goes." Tyler narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Tom didn't answer him. He pulled out his phone, tapped it a few times, then turned the screen toward me. And there it was. An email. With my name on it. Dated 6 months ago. Subject line: Consulting inquiry. Divorce strategy. I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't open it at first, he said. Figured it was spam. Then I got curious. Dug deeper. I took a shaky step forward. I can explain, he cut me off. You were going to leave me. You just didn't have the guts to do it. Tyler turned to me, stunned. Is that true? I couldn't lie. Not now. I talked to a lawyer. I never filed anything. But yes, I thought about leaving. Tom scoffed. Thought about it? You planned it. You had meetings. You looked into what you'd get, what you'd owe. You just didn't hit send. I looked at Tyler, trying to find something in his face I could hold on to. But he looked as shaken as I felt. It wasn't about you, I said. It was about a marriage that hadn't felt real in over a year. About me being alone in my own house. Tom stepped closer, voice sharper now. And you didn't tell me? You told him first. I didn't tell him anything, I snapped. Until tonight, I didn't even admit half of this to myself. But it didn't matter. Because the damage was already done. Tyler turned away from both of us, pacing. He ran a hand through his hair like he was trying to press rewind and failing miserably. So what was all this? He asked me, voice barely controlled. Were you using me? Was I just a way out? No, I said quickly. Tyler, no. I never wanted this to happen. But it did, he said, facing me again. And now I don't know what any of it meant. Tom shook his head. You both deserve each other. And then he did leave, this time for real. Tires screeched, taillights flared, and the black SUV disappeared into the night. The silence he left behind was louder than any argument we'd had. Tyler didn't move for a long time. Neither did I. Everything had changed. Again. But this time, the wreckage wasn't just emotional. It was real, concrete, and unavoidable. Now, it wasn't about who had feelings. It was about what we'd destroyed trying to avoid them. And the part that scared me most? I still didn't know if I regretted it. Tyler didn't speak as we drove. The silence between us wasn't just uncomfortable. It was charged, volatile. I could feel everything boiling under the surface. Shame, confusion, grief, anger. But what terrified me most was the possibility that none of it would get said at all. We pulled into the driveway. Tom's SUV wasn't there. The house looked cold, empty, like it already knew we'd broken something that couldn't be fixed. Tyler didn't get out right away. He just sat there, staring at the dark windows. I don't know what to do, he said finally. I turned toward him. Neither do I. He looked at me, eyes red but dry. I didn't come back home to fall for you. That wasn't the plan. I didn't even like you, remember? I almost smiled. Yeah, I remember. But then you saw me, he said. Not as some screw-up, not as Tom's son. You just saw me. I nodded. And you listened to me. More than he ever did. We sat in that for a moment. The raw truth of it. But we can't stay in this, I said. We've both been living in a space between what's right and what we want. And now we're here hurting him, hurting ourselves, and there's no way to keep pretending. He exhaled, slow and heavy. So what now? We just go back to pretending we don't feel it. No, I said. We don't pretend. But we don't act on it either. Not now. Maybe not ever. I could see it hit him. The way real consequences feel different from imagined ones. The fantasy dies and what's left is the weight of real life. I need space, he said. Not just from him. From you too. I nodded, even though it felt like tearing out a part of me. Then take it. He opened the door, stepped out, then hesitated. If things had been different, I know, I said quietly. Me too. Then he walked down the driveway, backpack slung over his shoulder, disappearing into the night. I sat in the car for a while after that, not ready to face the silence inside the house. The walls would feel heavier now, the air colder. Because no matter what story we tried to tell ourselves, the truth had already been spoken. And once something is said, it can't be unsaid. When I finally stepped inside, the house was dark except for the soft blue glow of the TV in the living room. I stopped short. Tom was there. He hadn't left. He looked over his shoulder, face unreadable. I came back. I needed to see if you would. I stood in the doorway, exhausted. I didn't expect you to be here. I didn't expect any of this, he said. But I'm still here. We stared at each other, the weight of everything between us settling like dust in a room that hadn't been touched in years. You still want this? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I don't know. But if we're gonna burn it all down, I want to be the one standing in the ashes with you, not watching from the street. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't the end. Not yet. It was the beginning of whatever came after. Tom and I talked for hours that night. No yelling. No accusations. Just two people, sitting in the quiet aftermath of something neither of us saw coming, trying to figure out if there was still anything left worth saving. I told him everything. About the distance that had built up between us, the nights I felt more alone in our marriage than I ever did before I met him. I told him about Tyler, not in the way he feared, but the truth. That emotions got tangled. That boundaries blurred. But nothing crossed the line. He didn't take it well at first. How could he? But then he surprised me. He didn't walk out. He didn't throw blame like grenades. He asked me the question that mattered most. Do you want to fix this? And I said yes, because deep down I did. Not because it was easy, but because I owed it to the woman I used to be, the one who believed marriage could survive honesty, even when it hurts. As for Tyler, he stayed away for a few weeks. I didn't hear from him at all. No texts. No calls. It was like he vanished, and maybe that was the point. He needed time to process, and so did I. Then one day, out of the blue, he showed up at the house. Not angry. Not bitter. He just wanted to talk. He apologized to both of us. Said he got caught up in things that felt too big to handle and didn't know how to put them down. He admitted that the connection we had confused him, but also opened his eyes to how much healing he still needed from his childhood, from his father, from life in general. Tom apologized too, for being emotionally distant, for failing to see how fractured we all were. And somehow, in that strange, fragile moment, we all understood each other more than we ever had. We're not pretending everything's perfect. It's not. But we're rebuilding honestly this time. Tom and I started therapy. Not just to patch things up, but to rediscover who we are outside of routine. Tyler took a job out of state, not to run away, but to grow. To figure out who he is on his own, without old wounds deciding for him. We text sometimes. Just check-ins. And I'm okay with that. It's enough. This whole thing taught me something important about emotional boundaries, about love, and about the cost of silence. It's not always the obvious betrayals that wreck us. Sometimes it's the things we don't say, the feelings we ignore, the slow drift that becomes distance without warning. But it also showed me that facing the truth, no matter how messy, is always better than living a lie. And maybe that's the moral here. Honesty can shatter things, but it can also rebuild them. So, thank you for listening to this story. Did you enjoy this story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.